Hi, everyone. Welcome back to She Blurs Podcast. Today's guest is Bob Brill. Hi, Bob.
Hey, how you doing, Brooke?
Good. Welcome to my show.
Thank you. Well, I thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
So, can you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I've been my main career has been radio. I've been in radio for about 50 years, and let's see. I currently work at an all news radio station in Los Angeles. That's my main job. But I've been writing for since I was a kid, and I produce as well as far as short films, and we just did a documentary that's coming out later this year. And I've always been a huge fan of the westerns because my dad was a huge fan of the westerns, and growing up in the 50s and 60s, we were um, in that era when like every other show was a western on television, and so it was just great. We'd watch them together, and especially the half-hour ones, and a lot of my heart goes back there. And my dad said he once read he read every Zane Grey novel in that was ever written. To be honest with you, I've never read a Zane Grey novel, but and I don't like to be influenced by outside sources, and that's a bone of contention by a lot of people. Say, how can you not read this stuff? Well, I know what I want to write, and the stories I want to write, and Lancer Hero of the West is the series I've been writing in the last 6 years, and this was the first one. This was 6 years ago, the Prescott Affair, and the number six is the I have to remember the Broken Bow Affair, which is number six in the series, and each book is a different affair. He works out at Tombstone. He's a good guy gunslinger who goes to other cities to solve crimes or whatever, on these missions, and it's a really fun read because it involves a lot of people who are legendary characters. And the good thing about legendary characters, you can write whatever you want about them because everything they wrote, everything's written about it, they made up themselves. So it's easy to build those conversations in. And on top of that, he's just a fun guy. I enjoy him, and it's a character that I've created from a compilation of different things. So, but that's meant we didn't write one this year because of the pandemic, and I had so
Yeah.
many other things going on. But and we didn't have the Cowboy Festival in Santa Clarita, which is where I always debut my Western novels. But there'll be 10 of them eventually, and right now there's six. So.
That's awesome. Wait, there's a cowboy festival?
Yeah, yeah. It's Santa Clarita has. I think they've been doing it for like 25 years, but because the pandemic, it didn't happen, and they postponed it this year again. And it's in Santa Clarita, and Santa Clarita is. It actually is in Hart Park, and Hart is William S. Hart, who was the silent movie cowboy screen star, who has his ranch and museum there. And of course, he died many years ago. But it's all about the West and everything. And it's the Cowboy Festival is just really cool. They have vendors and booths, and there's ladies walking around in Western wear, and they have shows and seminars, and we have what we call the Buckaroo Book Club, which I've been a part of for the last 5 years. And it's I'm there with a bunch of other Western authors, and we sell our books and talk to people, and it's a lot of fun, and but the last 2 years we couldn't do it. So
Wow, that's amazing. So, what inspired you to write the Lancer Heroes of the West?
well, it took me a while to tackle a Western, and I mean my first book was Fan Letters to a Stripper, which is a Patty Wagon tale, which is this one. It's published by Schiffer Books, and Patty Wagon is a real life person. She was one of the highest paid strippers in the country in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, and she married a Major League Baseball player by the name of Don Rudolph, and that's another story in itself. Then I wrote a novel, a terrorist novel, and I always wanted to write a Western novel, and I vowed if I did, I would write a series. And I thought about it, and it was a real challenge because unlike a lot of other readers of different genre, Western writers, because you're dealing with a well-known history of the West that you always find out new stuff about. But Western stories and Western readers are very particular. And if you screw it up, you try to stretch too far, they're going to call you on it.
Yeah.
And so, and now with the internet, the research is so much easier. It doesn't take you nearly as long. If I'd have written this back in the 50s, 60s, or 70s, well, not the 50s, but 60s, 70s, and 80s, it would take easily a year to write the book because the research you'd have to do through newspapers and books and libraries and stuff. Most of what I need research on is you can find in a quick Google search, and places, times, dates, manufacturers. Like for instance, in the New Orleans affair, I had a lot of it takes place on a riverboat. Well, I didn't. I had to give the riverboat a name, and I didn't want to give it a name from the time that was outside the time period. So the time period for Lancer is basically 1881 to 1885, and because he works out of Tombstone and during the heyday, and so basically, I put if I'm going to put him on a riverboat in 1881 to 1885, I couldn't have a riverboat have the name of one that wasn't built until 1887. And so that was with the internet, that was pretty easy to find. And I couldn't put them on a riverboat that was in existence and was destroyed in 1879 because the riverboat wouldn't be in those years. So, and if I did that, readers, especially of readers of New Orleans history, would call me on it, say, "No, you can't do this. That ship wasn't available at the time, and or it sank 3 years before that." So yeah, that's what I mean about readers of Western novels will call you on it if you aren't accurate, and that was a
Yes.
challenge for me. And I thought, if I make one mistake, one measly little mistake in the book, they're going to call me on it. I don't want to hear it. You never want to hear it. You don't mind critics. Well, you do mind critics, but you don't mind people saying, "Hey, I had a great book. I loved it." But you just don't want the haters, and you get them no matter what. But when you just don't, it's like I don't. You start thinking how to use your fingers. When you get the haters, and I just, I didn't want to do it. So then I finally said, "Okay." I developed this character. I sat for probably a year before I wrote the first one once I decided to do it. And then I write them. The Lancer novels take me basically from concept to publish probably about 3 to 4 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Part of it's formulaic too. There's, I know certain things are going to happen in a certain time frame, and so that helps. But it's, you know, the story's it's a fun read, and I write all my novels, at least the Lancer books, to be read on a 6-hour plane flight from New York to Los Angeles and back or back. So
Wow.
if you had two Lancer books and you flew from Los Angeles to New York and were coming back to Los Angeles a couple of days later or the same day, you can read both books. You should be able to read. They usually run right around 200 pages, and which is where I keep them for that specific reason.
So we can find the books on your website that I'll link below that website
Yes,
right there. Okay.
yes, bobbrillbooks.com. You can also find them on Amazon. This one is now an audio book, which I did. The Terrace novel is an audio book that it's called El Cabo, Homegrown Terrorist, and that was done by Claro Austria, who's an actor who's done some things, was in Madam Secretary and a few other things, and he read that one. And those are available on Amazon or in other places where you buy your audiobooks.
That's amazing. So I hope hopefully your books become like a series or something because my grandmother, she loves westerns and I always watch
Oh, great.
westerns with her. So hopefully it becomes like a series so she can watch it.
Well, it's funny because I wrote a pilot. As you know, I'm a screenwriter, and I wrote a pilot which got no traction whatsoever. We couldn't get anybody to uh, go past just reading the synopsis, and it was Lancer in the 21st century because
Uh,
westerns are so tough to get made, whether it's a
mhm.
feature film or a TV series or streaming or whatever. They're just tough. They're just difficult, and part of that's millennials, and it's
Yeah.
so long ago. But maybe I have to wait another 100 years for that to happen, which I'm certainly willing to do. I mean, I'll write it 100 years from now. Um, But the interesting thing about that is that I brought him in the 21st century. In other words, I transported him just as he was about to get shot by Johnny Ringo on the streets of Tombstone, and boom, he shows up in the 21st century in a hotel room. And one of the things, his horse is named Lincoln after Abe Lincoln. And so he's being instructed to leave this hotel room, get on the elevator, all which is new to him. And he goes, well, can I find, where's my horse? Where's my horse? And there's a limo waiting out there for him. And the door opens, and right next to the door, it says Lincoln.
Yep.
So,
That's cool. Wow. I agree with you. Yeah. A lot of the millennials don't like westerns.
yeah, I just think it's past them. I even heard that Western video games haven't done well,
Wow.
and it's like, it's 18. If you look at the eight when my books take place, it was 150 years ago, or 140 years ago, and that's a long time. I mean, but they do love stuff that happened 500 years ago, like
Right.
Game of Thrones, or that type of thing. So.
Yeah, that's true. So, who are a few of your favorite authors, and have any of them inspired any of your novels?
I one of these days I'm going to think of an answer for this question. I do get asked it. You know, I think um, I do like Stephen King,
You
and I
do?
think I don't write genre. He's a good storyteller. I think, and this is going to sound really bizarre, because my favorite author was not really an author, but he did write, and that was Machiavelli, Niccolo Machiavelli. And the reason I like Machiavelli, I mean, outside of the fact that he was a dastardly politician and a murderer, I mean, it was just a horrible person. If you read The Prince and say Selected Discourses, he writes the most logical stuff that I've ever read in my life. And I love logic, and I love, irony. Those two things, logic and irony, I love. And with him, that's if you read the Prince and Selected Discourses, what you get is logic and irony. Logic being that if if you are a politician and you get to the top of where you're going, you automatically get rid of the people who help you get there because they know what's going on, which is logical, but at the same time, it's ironic because they're the ones that got you there. You know,
Yeah.
so those two things, and um, I think that's probably the best answer I can give you, because like I said, I try not to read a lot. First of all, I just don't have the time with all the things I do. But when I was growing up, there was a guy who wrote, and I don't know his name, unfortunately. There was a guy who wrote a series of Civil War books, and I used to love to read about the Civil War, and so at least when I was a kid, and I mean, I love those books, but I guess I do like. Oh, I'll just leave it at that.
So, we can talk about your documentary.
Sure.
Uh, so, you want to tell the listeners about your
Well,
documentary?
yeah, it should be out later this year. It's in the hands of the distributors now. It's called Shaken, the Great Sylmar Earthquake. And basically, this year is the 50th anniversary of the Sylmar earthquake. And some people call it San Fernando Sylmar earthquake. Some people call it the Great LA earthquake. But if you grew up in Sylmar, which I did, I was a senior in Sylmar High School in 1971. That tells you exactly how old I am, probably. Um, February 9th, 1971, the earth shook at 6.5 at the time on the Richter scale. And it was a huge, huge thing for us. And 66 people were killed, millions upon millions of dollars in damage. But more than that, the Sylmar earthquake was, a lot of seismologists call it the most important earthquake in the history of the United States. And basically, everything that we know now and we do now has come from SOMAR, whether it's the CERT team, Citizens Emergency Response Teams, um, the search and rescue teams. All that came out of SOMAR. Life insurance, or excuse me, earthquake insurance came after SOMAR. All those things and fire prevention and everything in after the earthquakes, all that came out of SOMAR. And so we went back and basically we found a bunch of people I went to high school with and interviewed them. And also we interviewed folks from the Office of Emergency Services for the state of California, local firefighters who were there and have gone on to different things since then in the field, and also insurance guys. And it's a really good documentary in the fact that we also there's video. There's actual video. There isn't very much video of the 1933 earthquake in Long Beach, but there's a lot of video because it was just that era when TV was exploding and everything. So we have a lot of video from the time, plus a lot of home movies, a lot of still shots that were given to us by people who participated in the documentary. And probably the last third of it is what happens next. In other words, when we have the big one, and I'll give you a little insight. Um, First of all, we all thought, as children of the 50s and 60s,
Mhm.
that when the earthquake hit, it was a nuclear attack. And people said that exactly. We thought the Russians had finally come and we were being bombed.
Oh,
Uh, yeah. And the last third of it deals with next. And there's been a study done for the state of California that says if we have a 7.8 earthquake or 7.5 earthquake in Los Angeles, southern Andreas Fault, if that happens on a normal dry day,
mhm.
there will be 113,000 fires that will break out
Wow.
immediately, and that will overwhelm the system. If it happens on a Santa Ana wind condition, for those who don't know about Santa Ana winds, it's a very bad wind condition of high winds here in Southern California. It happens twice a year. If it happens during a Santa Ana wind condition, we're talking 300,000 fatalities.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And so that's what this documentary is about. It covers all of that. It's an hour long. And right now it's in the hands of the distributors. And we expect it to be out later this year.
That's
But
amazing.
the website's live. You can go to the website. It's called Shaken the Movie, SHAKEN, themovie.com. And you can go there. We have a lot of the stills and a lot of actual, the raw, full interviews of the people who appeared in the documentary.
Wow, that's amazing. I want to thank you so much, Bob, for coming on my show and talking about your documentary and your Lance novels, well, series.
Thank you, Brooke. It's been a pleasure, and I'm glad you called me. I'm happy about that. Thank you.
You have a great day.
You too.
Bye. Hey, everyone. I want to thank you all so much for listening to my interview with Bob Brill. Sorry, my lips are a little dry, but thank you for listening to my interview. If you would like to check out Bob's documentary, or if you would like to check out any of his novels, it is his link is linked below. It is bobbrillbooks.com, and you can just check out all of his books, all of his novels, and everything he's written, his series, everything, his screenwriting, everything. So I hope you all enjoy my interview. I want to thank you all so much for supporting my podcast. I greatly appreciate it. I hope you all have a great day and be safe.